All right, hello everyone. Welcome to this Chem 4420 biochemistry tutorial from the University of Notre Dame. In this video, we'll be breaking down glycolysis, which is the process of cells turning glucose into energy. It's the first step in cellular respiration and is foundational for understanding metabolism. All right, so let's get into this. I hope you guys enjoy my little memes I got on the internet here. Biochemistry can in fact be fun. All right, so let's start with just a rough sketch of what glycolysis is. We start with one glucose molecule, which then becomes two pyruvate molecules, which are shuttled into the citric acid cycle and the electron transport chain, which becomes an abundance of ATP. Speaking of ATP, we generate 2 ATP in glycolysis, and we also generate 2 NADH, which are useful for electron carriers. Glycolysis is a 10-step process in the cytoplasm, plasm, and is broken into 2 phases. We have the investment phase and the payoff phase. So let's get into the investment phase here. The investment phase is from steps 1 through 5, as shown here. We start with 1 glucose, and then we generate 2 G3Ps in the final step. So let's highlight the important steps here. So step 1 and step 3 are very important as they utilize ATP and are very highly regulated. The enzymes used are hexokinase and phosphofructokinase. The kinases take the inorganic phosphate of ATP and add it on to the respective molecules. So glucose in step 1, and then fructose 6-phosphate becomes fructose 1,6-bisphosphate because the phosphate is transferred. It's a transferase enzyme onto the molecules, right? Those two processes, step 1 and step 3, use 1 ATP, right, each. So there's a net loss of 2 ATP in the investment phase. It's going on to the energy payoff phase. It's steps 6 through 10. And an important thing to highlight here is that everything is times 2, right, because we have 2 G3P molecules to start the payoff phase. So important steps here are steps 6, 7, and 10. Step 6, we have an oxireductase reaction catalyzed by G3P dehydrogenase, where this NAD plus molecule is reduced into NADH. We also use an inorganic phosphate in this step, so let's keep track. Let's account for this, right? So we gain 2 NADH. And we lose 2 inorganic phosphates, okay? And then step 7, we are going to get our first payoff phase, right? We're going to generate an ATP, but remember, everything's times 2, so we get 2 times ATP, right? And then step 10, another very highly regulated step. We have a kinase here, pyruvate kinase. We're going to generate 2 more ATP, okay? So let's account for what we have so far. Remember, we lost 2 ATP in the investment phase, right? And then we're going to gain 4 ATP in the payoff. And then we're going to gain an NADH. We're going to lose 2 NADH, and we're going to lose 2 inorganic phosphates, okay? So total, let's go down here. Total, we have a gain of 2 ATP, a gain of 2 NADH, and then we have a loss of 2 inorganic phosphates, right? So these are the final products of glycolysis. And remember, this is all happening in the cytosol and can be anaerobic with oxygen or without oxygen, okay? All right, so let's talk about key steps in regulating glycolysis. As I said, there are 3 really important enzymes in this process. It's hexokinase in step 1. We have phosphofructokinase in step 3, and then we have pyruvate kinase in step 10. Okay, so each of these are highly regulated. Let's give a little start of phosphofructokinase as it is the rate determining step. Okay, so key regulatory aspects of each of these enzymes, I would say, is negative feedback. Negative feedback is a common pattern we're going to see in all of these, and that's basically where the product will inhibit the reaction. Okay, so for example, for step 1, let's go red here. Hexokinase is inhibited by glucose 6-phosphate, so G6P, and remember that is the product of step 1. Okay. All right, and then for phosphofructokinase from step 3, it's going to be inhibited by ATP and citrate. While these aren't direct products of step 3, ATP is it's the final, it's what we're getting out of metabolism. So if we have ATP available, then this process simply won't happen. And then citrate is in the citric acid cycle, which is a downstream process of glycolysis. So if there's plenty of citrate, then we're not going to need to go through glycolysis to later produce energy. And then pyruvate kinase from step 10 is going to be inhibited again by ATP. And as I said, if we have ATP, if we have energy, we don't need glycolysis. There we go. Right, we don't need it. Okay. All right, so there are some real world applications of glycolysis, obviously. And if the process is, not running as smoothly as it should be, there are going to be issues. So one of these issues is the Warburg effect. The Warburg effect is found in cancerous cells, where glucose undergoes glycolysis. It creates a lot of pyruvate, which is then creates lactate as a byproduct. And as we can see from this normal cell over here, we're going to generate a normal amount of pyruvate. It's going to go to the mitochondria to produce more ATP. And then there's lactate still, but not nearly as much as in the Warburg effect in the cancerous cell, right? So the importance of lactate is that if glycolysis is upregulated, right? If it's increased, then that's going to increase pyruvate production, which then increases the lactate byproduct, right? As we can see here, in the cancerous cell, there's a lot more lactate. And this lactate, is really important that there's an upregulation, because lactate leads to an increased NAD+ amount within the cell, which promotes, right here, let's go green here. It's going to promote more glycolysis, right? And so this is advantageous for cancerous cells because it can make energy really fast through just glycolysis, right? If a cancer cell wants to grow uncontrollably, it can just bypass the citric acid cycle and the electron transport chain. While the electron transport chain might generate more ATP in the long run, if we can just upregulate glycolysis and again make it really just go really fast, it's going to promote quick ATP generation and quick cell growth. All right, so let's go through a quick review of what we've learned. So glycolysis is a 10-step process, right? In the cytosol, it breaks pyruvate, it breaks glucose into 2-pyruvate. and then we generate 4 ATP, right? 4 ATP in the process, but we lose 2 ATP for a net 2 ATP. And then the pyruvate is going to get shuttled into the citric acid cycle, and then which will then go to the electron transport chain in the mitochondria, right? So this is a very important step. I hope you guys learned a lot and enjoyed this. Have a great rest of your semester.